that's so much about the Olympics. That's the good and the bad, right? I mean, it's a lot of money that these countries spend.
A lot of money.
Do they get anything for it?
No.
Really? No.
Well,
they get the world's attention,
The world's attention, but, look.
Pyeongchang or whatever, never heard of it before.
South Korea
Sochi.
doubled its budget, doubled its initial budget prediction. They're going to spend something like $13 billion. They want to turn it into the Asian winter sports hub, but South Koreans don't really care about winter sports. The surveys beforehand were kind of unenthusiastic. And also they tore down a sacred forest, part of a sacred forest, to build the ski slopes. They don't know how they're going to use any of the venues after the games. And this is a typical story. This isn't South Korea's fault. I mean, Sochi was even worse.
Sochi was worse, right?
You go to the summer games are even worse because they're more expensive and they're more destructive. But, it's typical. The Olympics are bloated budgets and environmental destruction, and
I wanted to ask
now you're adding a potential geopolitical mess into this one,
right? And not much payoff, right?
No, the benefits are really small.
But we were talking earlier before the show started, but like the one exception to that may be Squaw Valley. I mean, I just know it because we used to go skiing there in California, right? I mean, it was the Winter Olympics, and it sort of put Squaw Valley on the map.
I mean,
it's a great mountain, and it still is a major ski resort in California.
You have the aspects of like Salt Lake City where they basically moved the American Olympic program there, even though those Olympics were massively corrupt.
Mitt Romney?
Until Mitt Romney came in and saved them.
Right.
Saved them to the extent you can save an Olympics. But, for the most part, I mean, they're going to South Korea is going to tear down their Olympic stadium.
Because?
They don't have anything to use it for.
Wow.
So they built a stadium that they're going to host the opening ceremonies and closing ceremonies for the Olympics and Paralympics, and then it's going to be gone.
I can't think of anything more unnecessary and wasteful.
Right, just for the ceremonies, right?
Yeah.
Which, and the opening ceremony didn't take place until like 2.5 days into the Olympics. We could have just not done it.
Right.
Well, no one's going to miss the ceremony.
I want to ask you about, if I can, the difference between doing the Olympics in a place like Pyeongchang or Sochi, or a relatively, not unknown, but a lesser-known sports hub, as opposed to like we saw London or Rio, where you've got an established city that sort of builds all these things for the Olympics. What happens to those cities afterwards? What happens to those places?
Or why not go back to some of the ones that have done it, like L.A. where they've got
it's hard, right? So the Winter Games and the Summer Games are different beasts.
Yeah.
But if you look at Rio, which, yes, is an established city, they went way over budget. Their economy collapsed before the games, which hurt them even more. Most of the venues are already obsolete. They basically ruined one of the greatest sporting stadiums in the world, which is the Maracanã, the national soccer stadium that they privatized and is now in a state of ruin because the private companies and the government don't have any money to maintain it. And then the other legacies of Rio are the security, they failed to clean up Guanabara Bay, which was a huge supposed legacy of those games. They've had a massive violence outbreak because they don't have money to pay cops. The programs they put in place for security were bad from the start. Then you go to places like London, where the stadium costs are still rising because they converted it into a soccer stadium for a Premier League club. One of London's major legacy items was affordable housing. They didn't accomplish that. Most of the housing has been luxury or not affordable by the official definition. And the other legacy point for London was supposedly increasing sports participation for children and people in East London. That hasn't happened. Sports participation rates are basically the same. Every promise they make tends to be empty.
Yeah.
And the best way to look at the Olympics, and the Winter Olympics are less so on this, but the Olympics are mostly a development scheme. They're a development and advertising scheme. For the organizers, for the big companies, For big developers and governments, they're a way to redo a city the way you want to seize land and, put in pricey development in neighborhoods that weren't developed. For advertisers, be it Coca-Cola, NBC, whoever, it's a chance to showcase your brand to the world.
Right.
The sports in the Olympics are, while that's what, all of us like to watch, those are mostly tangential to the actual point.
They're just using them to make
their
thing.
cover.